At my intervention, my father shook his head, "You're just weak." My brother scoffed, "You could stop if you really wanted to." My hands trembled as my mother sobbed, "Please, just be honest." I took a deep breath and said, "Fine. But you go first." When I read their bank statements, they realized I wasn't the only addict in the room. I never thought I'd be the one sitting in the hot seat, facing my family's judgment. But there I was, in the living room of our modest Chicago home, surrounded by the people I loved most. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the weight of their eyes on me. My father, a retired steelworker with a reputation for discipline, sat in his favorite armchair. His face was a mask of disappointment, deep lines etched into his forehead. He shook his head slowly, his voice heavy with disdain. "You're just weak," he muttered, not even looking at me. Beside him, my older brother lounged on the couch, arms crossed over his chest. He had always been the golden child, excelling in academics and sports. Now a successful lawyer, he had an air of superiority that was hard to miss. He scoffed, a smirk playing on his lips. "You could stop if you really wanted to," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. My mother sat at the edge of the sofa, clutching a tissue in her trembling hands. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She had always been the glue holding our family together, the one who mediated our disputes and offered unconditional love. Now, she looked at me with a mixture of sorrow and desperation. "Please, just be honest," she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. I felt a lump forming in my throat, my hands clammy and shaking. The shame was almost unbearable. I had been caught, and there was no denying it. My addiction to online gambling had spiraled out of control, leading me down a path of deceit and financial ruin. I had borrowed money from friends, maxed out credit cards, and even dipped into my savings to feed my habit. But as I sat there, absorbing their judgment and disappointment, a spark of defiance ignited within me. I wasn't the only one with secrets. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "Fine," I said, my voice quivering. "But you go first." The room fell silent. My family exchanged puzzled glances, unsure of what I meant. I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of papers, my hands trembling as I placed them on the coffee table. "I'd been doing some digging," I began, my eyes scanning their faces. "And it turns out, I'm not the only one with a problem." I picked up the first document and turned to my father. "Dad," I said, holding up the paper, "I found multiple withdrawals from your retirement account over the past year. Large sums. Care to explain?" His face turned ashen, and he shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "That's none of your business," he muttered, avoiding my gaze. I pressed on, my voice gaining strength. "Is it because of the casino trips to Indiana? I found receipts and noticed the frequent charges." "You've been gambling, haven't you?" He clenched his jaw, his eyes fixed on the floor. The silence spoke volumes. Turning to my brother, I held up another set of documents. "And you," I said, my tone accusatory. "Those late-night online transactions? Betting on sports games, perhaps?" He sat up straighter, his face flushed with anger. "That's different," he snapped. "I have it under control." "Do you?" I challenged. "Because it looks like you've racked up quite a bit of debt. Maxed out credit cards, overdue bills. Doesn't seem so controlled to me." Finally, I faced my mother. My heart ached at the sight of her tear-streaked face, but I couldn't stop now. "Mom," I said gently, "the shopping sprees on Michigan Avenue? The maxed-out credit cards? Buying things we don't need with money we don't have?" She broke down, sobbing into her hands. "I just wanted to feel better," she whispered between sobs. Shopping was my escape. The room was heavy with the weight of our collective secrets. The facade of a perfect family had crumbled, leaving us exposed and vulnerable. "We're all addicts," I said softly, my eyes meeting each of theirs in turn. "We all have our vices. But pointing fingers won't help any of us." The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time, we were forced to confront the reality of our situations. The judgment and blame shifted to understanding and empathy. That night marked the beginning of a long and arduous journey. We decided to seek therapy together, confronting our individual addictions and supporting each other through recovery. It wasn't easy, and there were times we wanted to give up. But acknowledging our collective struggles brought us closer, teaching us the value of empathy, understanding, and unconditional love. Our family, once fractured by secrets and shame, began to heal. We learned to communicate openly, to lean on each other in times of weakness, and to celebrate our victories, no matter how small. The road to recovery was long, but together, we found the strength to walk it. The days after the intervention were tense. We didn't talk much. Everyone kind of went back to pretending things were fine, but they weren't. The house felt heavy, like something was always about to explode. I started going to a support group. Every Tuesday and Friday night, I sat in a circle with strangers in a church basement off Ashland Avenue. I talked about the rush, the guilt, the way gambling made me feel alive, and then dead inside. For the first time, I was learning how to be honest. But the more I dug into myself, the more I saw the cracks in my family growing deeper. My dad started drinking more. Quietly. A beer turned into 3, then into something harder. He'd fall asleep on the recliner with the TV still on, ESPN blaring at full volume, his face pale and sunken. I confronted him once, just me and him in the kitchen. I said, "You need help too." He stared at me for a second, then slammed his glass on the counter. "Don't lecture me. I worked 40 years to provide for this family. You screw up and now suddenly you're a preacher?" I didn't say anything back. I just walked away. My mom stopped going to work. She said she was sick, but she wasn't. She just didn't want to leave the house anymore. She'd sit on the couch watching shopping channels, half her attention on the screen, the other half on her phone. Packages kept showing up at the door. Boxes and boxes of things we didn't need. Electric blenders, weird beauty gadgets, shoes still in their plastic wrap. She didn't even open half of them. When I mentioned it, she looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Let me have this. It's the only thing that makes the silence go away." My brother was the biggest surprise, though. One night, I caught him in the garage. He was supposed to be helping me clear it out, but I walked in and found him pacing, phone pressed to his ear, whispering into it like it was a matter of life or death. I stood there for a second, then asked, "You good?" He jumped, then hung up quickly. "Yeah. Just work." But I saw his hand shaking. And I noticed the scratch-off ticket stuffed in his coat pocket. Later that week, I checked the joint credit card we all used to pay for groceries and house stuff. Someone had pulled over $4,000 out in cash. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew who it was. I brought it up during dinner. Spaghetti night. Always quiet, always predictable. I said, "Whoever drained the joint card needs to own up." My mom flinched. My dad didn't look up. My brother shoved more food into his mouth like he didn't hear me. So I stood, walked to the cabinet, and dropped the bank printout on the table. Silence. Then my brother finally spoke. "You don't get to police everyone just because you had your little awakening." I stared at him. "It's not about control. It's about honesty. That's what this was supposed to be about." He laughed, bitter and sharp. "You think this family can survive honesty?" That hit harder than anything else. A week later, my brother didn't come home. His phone was off, his car gone. My mom kept calling hospitals. My dad just drank more. 3 days later, he came back. His face was a mess. Black eye, bruised lip. He looked like someone had worked him over good. He didn't talk for a long time. Finally, he sat down next to me in the garage and said, "I owed money. A lot of it. To the wrong people." I didn't even ask how much. I just nodded. He looked at me, his eyes red. I thought I had it under control. And that was the thing. We all thought we did. but we didn't. This wasn't a story about one addiction. It was a whole web of lies and cravings, each one feeding the other. What none of us knew yet was that my dad had taken out a second mortgage to cover some of his gambling losses. My mom had opened 2 new credit cards in her sister's name without telling anyone. And my brother, well, someone was still following him. I saw the same black SUV parked across the street 2 nights in a row. This was far from over. And something darker was coming. It was a Thursday night when things really started to fall apart. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I saw flashing red and blue lights through the blinds. My stomach dropped. Police? Ambulance? I stepped outside. 2 officers were at the front door. "Are you the homeowner?" one asked. "No," I said. "My parents are." "What's this about?" They exchanged a glance. "We have a warrant." Financial fraud tied to a credit card opened under the name of Monica Sida. That was my mom's sister. "We're here to speak with Monica or anyone who may have used her identity." My mom came to the door in her robe. Her eyes went wide as the officer said the name. Her lip trembled. "I didn't think it would go that far," she whispered. Turns out, Aunt Monica had finally seen the bills and reported it to her bank. She had no idea who did it, but the trail led straight back to our house. My mom had used her identity to open 2 store cards and 1 major Visa. And now there were charges under review, over $12,000. The cops didn't arrest her. Not yet. They asked her to come in for questioning. She nodded weakly, hugging herself like she was trying to stay from falling apart. That night, she didn't sleep. None of us did. Dad didn't say a word through the whole thing. Just sat at the kitchen table with a glass of something dark in his hand. When I asked if he was okay, he muttered, "Your mother always did have a taste for the easy way out." I was about to argue, but then he dropped the real bomb. "I used your name to apply for a loan." I blinked. "What?" "I didn't think you'd notice," he said. "It was small. Just $10,000. I thought I could pay it back before it mattered." I sat down. "Hard. You used my name?" He nodded like it was no big deal. "You weren't using your credit anyway." The betrayal was like a punch to the gut. He had opened a personal loan under my name months ago. I found out later it had gone to fund a losing streak at the Horseshoe Casino in Hammond. I also found out he hadn't made a payment in 3 months, and now collections were calling my phone. I couldn't believe it. The man who'd called me weak had stolen my identity. I started sleeping with my wallet under my pillow. And then came the SUV. It wasn't just paranoia. I caught a man in a black hoodie standing on our porch, looking through the living room window one night. By the time I opened the door, he was gone. My brother finally confessed that he had borrowed money from a private bookie, not an online service. These guys weren't sending emails. They sent people. "I tried to pay," he said, pacing the garage. "I gave them everything I had. But the debt keeps growing." The man had told him they were watching the house now. I told him to go to the cops. He shook his head. "You don't get it. These guys? You don't go to the cops." We moved the furniture to block the doors that night. I sat in the living room with a baseball bat. Every shadow looked like a threat. A few days later, I came home from a group meeting and noticed something strange. My room had been tossed. Not just messy, searched. Drawers open. Closet pulled apart. Even my bed flipped. I ran to the garage. My brother was sitting there, head in his hands. "I was looking for your emergency stash," he said without looking up. "I don't have an emergency stash." "I thought maybe you did." That was the moment I knew, there was no bottom to this pit. We were sinking, and nobody was trying to swim anymore. We were stealing from each other. Lying to each other. And the walls were closing in. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number: "Tell your brother he's running out of time. I showed it to him. His face went pale. They got my number, he whispered. They weren't supposed to know where I lived. They weren't supposed to know you. And now they did. No one could pretend anymore. The lies weren't just tearing us apart. They were putting us in danger. Something had to break. We just didn't know what was coming next. The black SUV showed up again on a Friday night. This time, it didn't just idle across the street. It pulled into our driveway. The headlights cut across the living room window, slicing the tension already thick in the air. We were all in the house, my dad asleep at the table, my mom clutching a glass of wine, my brother pacing again like he was waiting for something awful to land. I opened the door before they knocked. There were two guys. One tall, wiry. The other short and stocky. No smiles. No threats. Just one sentence. He knows what he owes. Then they turned and left. No shouting. No demands. Just a warning, quiet and clear. It was worse than shouting. That night, everything boiled over. My dad woke up, drunk and irritated. What the hell is going on now? I told him the truth. All of it. I laid it out on the kitchen table like a police report. I'm getting calls about debt collectors in my name, because of you. Mom's being investigated for fraud. My brother has actual criminals knocking on our door. And you all have the nerve to sit here and call me the addict? Nobody spoke. So I kept going. You want to talk about weak? I stared straight at my dad. You stole my identity to keep gambling. You want to talk about honesty? I turned to my mom. You've been lying to your own sister for months. And you, I pointed at my brother, who by now had slumped into the chair like he wanted to disappear. You almost got us all hurt because you thought you could handle something that's way bigger than you. My dad stood up, the chair screeching across the floor. Don't you dare come at us like you're better. I'm not better, I snapped. I'm just like you. That's the point. That's when my mom cracked. She stood up too, slammed her wine glass down so hard it shattered on the table. Stop it. Just stop it. I can't listen to this anymore. Then she turned to my dad. You want to know why I opened those cards? Because I was tired of feeling like I was just existing. You were never here, even before the gambling. You just sat in that chair every night like I wasn't even in the room. The room went silent. My dad looked stunned. My brother's jaw dropped. I shop because it's the only thing that distracts me from how empty everything feels. Then she looked at me. And I'm sorry. About the fraud. About all of it. She was crying by then. Not the quiet kind. The loud, heaving sobs that shake the whole body. My dad sat down slowly, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I just wanted to win something, for once, he said quietly. Just once, I wanted to beat the odds. My brother stood, walked over to the wall, and punched it. Hard. Left a dent in the drywall. They said they'd hurt you. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't either, I said. No one did. The next morning, my Aunt Monica showed up. She'd heard from the police. She didn't yell. She didn't scream. She looked my mom in the eye and said, "You could have just asked me for help. I would have given it to you." My mom broke down again. Aunt Monica told her she wouldn't press charges, but she wasn't going to cover the debt either. You clean this up. You take responsibility. That's the only way this family survives. She looked at me before leaving and said, "You've got a good head, but you're standing in the middle of a burning house. Just make sure you're the one who finds the door." It's been 4 months since that night. My dad checked himself into a program. Not for alcohol, not yet, but he started therapy. He hasn't gambled since. He still barely talks, but when he does, it feels real. Like maybe he's finally peeling back the layers he spent decades building. My mom is working part-time now. She sees a counselor too. She says she's trying to find new ways to cope. Her relationship with Aunt Monica is shaky, but they talk. That's more than before. My brother? He's still digging out of the mess. He paid the debt. Sold his car to do it. He walks everywhere now. But he says it's helping. One foot in front of the other, he tells me. I believe him. Some days. As for me, I'm still going to meetings. I've started journaling. I froze my credit. Took out a separate phone line. Put boundaries in place. All the adult stuff no one teaches you until you have to figure it out while dragging an entire house behind you. We're not okay. But we're not pretending anymore either. And weirdly, that's something. Addiction didn't just eat away at our money. It hollowed out the trust. The love. The sense that this family was supposed to be safe. But if nothing else, it showed us the truth. The ugly, raw, messy truth. And the truth might be the only thing left to build from. I used to think rock bottom was losing everything. But maybe it's realizing you never had what you thought you did in the first place. Now, I just want to start over. One piece at a time. I'm not hopeful. I'm not hopeless either. I'm just here. Awake. Watching. Ready for whatever comes next.